Many thanks for your opening submissions. Professor, many thanks for patiently waiting. Let me come to you. I'm going to ask you the same question. Was India uniquely exposed back then? I mean, a newly independent nation trying to understand, wriggle its own, situation. Does debating Panchsheel today meaningfully affect India's current position on the line of actual control? Is it largely symbolic, politicized? How do you read the CDS's comments, and where do we go on from here?
I think clearly at the moment these 5 principles of peaceful coexistence were enunciated in the April 1954 agreement, they were generally seen as sublime and broad principles that would guide not just India-China relations, but international relations in general. Let me make the first point to say that in hindsight, we are always very wise. We are always bolder and wiser in that sense. So first thing that we require to debate this point is not to look at it from 2026, when India is a nuclear weapon state. India is going to be third largest economy, largest middle class, booming, technologies and so on. We have to look at the argument in 1950s and ask the question, was there a clear understanding of a buffer? Was there India as one united nation? Was there one China united nation? We were still finding our feet as to who we are at that time. And the buffer that we are talking of, the British had only recognized de facto autonomy with certain amount of presence in terms of post and telegraph and trade agencies and so on, which India, of course, inherited. And India, of course, when India decided to give away those, free, concessions in terms of India's access there, maybe India should have sought hard bargain instead of implicit and indirect understanding that the border on this side will be seen as resolved now. So that understanding perhaps fell flat after the Chinese decided to move forward and claim those territories. And that did not happen because of Panchsheel agreement. That happened primarily because the uprising that happened in Tibet, the fact that Dalai Lama decided to come to India, the fact that India allowed him to stay here, that is what militarized, quote unquote, this border, which was supposed to have easy access to each other. They had agreed on 6 passes from Shipkila to, sort of Niti, Kangdi, Kungdi, and the Dharma and Lipur Lake and so on. So the nature of reality of that time was very different. And even when we finally were pushed to the wall and we had to send Indian army to the high altitude warfare, they were going there in canvas shoes. I mean, we are talking of an army of a very different era. We are talking of India of a very different era when we are still trying to consolidate Indian state. So I think, yes, one can in hindsight see that things could have done differently. But these ifs and buts of history are task of academics, I suppose. They will keep debating it over a period of time, and one can understand. Go back, we'll find some things that could have been perhaps done differently, but that was not the option. For example, India did what India thought at that time was good for it. And
you're absolutely right, Professor. I mean, Captain Retrospect, nobody knows better than Captain Retrospect. And no pun intended at this point in time. Final 30 seconds to Professor. Professor, like General pointed out, what lessons from the 1950s are still relevant today?
I think we've already learned a lot of lessons from there, and the way India approaches China today is not the same as Nehru approached China. We are very assertive. You saw what happened post-Galwan. We are standing eyeball to eyeball with China, and finally the thaw resulted after 4.5 years. So that means Nehru trusted China perhaps more than he should have. But that's in hindsight that we can be wiser. Today we have learned lessons. We are already dealing with China with far more pragmatic manner. Border tensions are going on simultaneously as trade goes up 40% in the same year. That's a very smart, calibrated policy of sector-wise cooperation, sector-wise conflict. So I'm sure we have constantly been learning from what Nehru did.
That's one question that we were asking on the broadcast today, Professor, as well. That did we gift wrap Tibet and give it to